Everybody, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined as always by Dakota Lasky. Dak, what is going on?
Not much, man. Not much. The days and weeks continue to blur together. I'm continuing to play Valorant every day, and actually going to start another run through of Samus Returns because of the topic we're talking about today. Got me really excited to and motivated to do so. So I'm going to be starting up some Samus Returns again. But otherwise, I am doing absolutely fantastic. Andy, how are you?
Couldn't be better actually. Last week we kind of both came on here. We were like, we're okay. I feel a little bit more fired up this week for whatever reason. Not for whatever reason. It's because I'm really excited to talk about what we got to talk about today. We've talked a lot on this show about like kind of Nintendo and Metroid as a series and Metroid as a franchise, but like I don't know that we've like actually dived really deep into the games yet. And that's coming, but today I feel like, now we're going to dive into the games. I am really, really excited about this. We are going to be ranking every single Ridley fight in the series. Dak, I know this has got to be right up your alley. You pumped?
I feel like the Ridley theme has to play like right there real quick on the show somehow. Like, yeah, I'm so pumped. Obviously, y'all know Ridley is my favorite Metroid character, one of my favorite characters in just everything, like not just video games, just in fiction. I'm a huge Ridley fan. So, of course, ranking the Ridley boss fights is going to be something that I've been looking forward to for a while. I'm glad we're finally going to get to it. We have 10 instances of Ridley fights. So, Andy, maybe we run down the chronological list real quick.
Absolutely, we can, and that chronological list looks like And actually, I guess I'm going to back up for a second here too and explain how we are going to actually do this list because it kind of ties into the chronological list itself. So what Dak and I did is we've ranked the 10 fights that we deemed, are the 10 Ridley fights. So we didn't include any of the Super Smash Bros. Fights. We didn't include Metroid Prime Pinball. We kind of lumped the Super Metroid fights together. So there's 10 fights versus Ridley. And we've each made our own list, but we've kept them a secret from each other. I don't know what his list is. He doesn't know what my list is. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through each fight chronologically, and then we're going to rank them based on how many fights we have. So for example, we're going to start off with the first fight and then go, which is Ridley and Metroid. Then we're going to go to Super Metroid, which is the Ridley fight there. And then we're going to rank those 1 and 2. We're going to go into Metroid Prime, which is the Meta Ridley fight. And then, we're going to insert that one. It could either be 1, 2, or 3 into our list. Same thing with Metroid Fusion. We're going to insert Ridley X, either 1, 2, 3, or 4, etc., etc. So by the time that our list is done, all 10 fights are going to be inserted into our list dynamically. It's going to kind of be like a debate. It might be a little bit of give and take. I might have a certain Ridley fight higher than Dak and vice versa. So we're going to be talking about the different fights, what makes them awesome, what we didn't like necessarily. But, that's really how this list is going to go down. So the criteria or the contenders are the first Ridley fight from Metroid, the Ridley fight in Super Metroid, the Meta Ridley fight in Metroid Prime, Ridley X from Metroid Fusion, Ridley in Metroid Zero Mission, Robot Ridley, also in Metroid Zero Mission, Meta Ridley in Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, Omega Ridley in Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, Ridley in Metroid Other M, and Proteus Ridley in Samus Returns. So those are the 10 contenders, and I feel like we got, this is going to be a long one. I think there's a lot to dive into, so let's just get right into it. Dak, you ready?
Yeah, and also I feel like we should also maybe look at the list at the end and possibly move stuff around just in case. But yeah, I like how we're gonna go at it. Just kind of going at it chronologically and then moving it around based on where the other stuff is already on the list. I have my list. You have your list. I'm excited because I do feel like you think what I'm going to pick on some of them, and I don't think
feel like I have a good idea.
I don't think you know.
Okay, but, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's start it off. Let's kick it off.
All right, what about this, too? At the end of the show, let's just rattle off our lists really quickly to each other. I think we'll probably touch on,
for sure.
I rank this high, I rank this low, but let's just do it at the end.
Yeah, I'm down for that. It's a reveal after the show list has been made. Then we can compare our individual lists, too.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get it started with the one that started it all, the Ridley fight in the original Metroid. Dak, this is pretty low on my list. There's not much to this fight in comparison, and it's so tough to rank the original Metroid in comparison with its like other contemporaries because like or other games that followed it rather because like it's I mean the game is almost 35 years old. The technology wasn't there, the music wasn't there, everything that we kind of have come to expect from the Ridley boss fights just like wasn't there at the time. So like this is like for historic reasons it's a cool fight, but like when you look at this fight versus I'm gonna be frank, every other fight in the series, it doesn't hold up to me. This one is not one that I am super keen on. What about you?
Yeah, I think we can all agree that this is certainly not a fight that really stands up against the other Ridley fights. But that being said, I think for its time, it's a pretty decent boss fight, and we do see a lot of the elements that show up in other, later Ridley boss fights in this one, really that contained small area to fight him. A lot of later Ridley boss fights kind of have like the sides of the boss area kind of like disappeared, or there's lava on the sides, so that way you can't just like sit in the corner. I know in like Metroid Fusion that's not the case, but like in Super Metroid and in Zero Mission, there's like lava on the sides or acid, so you can't sit on the corners, and that started, I believe, in the NES version as well. So you kind of see a little bit here and there, but otherwise, yeah, it's not super reminiscent of what you end up getting, like other than like the super basic fundamentals in the later fights. So it's an old, super old NES game, and the boss fights are going to be reflective of that. But yeah, not crazy, nothing, not a game changing or industry changing boss fight. But it was the first one, and it would probably be ranked accordingly.
Yeah, and this might be sacrilege, but even I don't think the pixel work for Ridley is like super
Yeah,
fantastic.
that Ridley kind of looks bad. He did.
I feel like that's such a big part of all the Ridley fights is like he just looks so scary and like so intimidating. And in this one, like he doesn't look, I wouldn't say bad, but he doesn't look
He's not scary.
like he doesn't look like that dragon, He kind
Yeah.
of looks like this weird, I don't know what he looks like, but it ain't a dragon.
Yeah, I don't know. He's kind of like he's a little more cartoony, which kind of Metroid, the original Metroid still kind of had a little bit of a light feel to it cuz the bugs and the aliens and everything are all and the creatures are all kind of, they can't do too much because of the pixels, right? So like they can't show off too much like intimidating stuff in terms of features. So they're not that like crazy or like to look at or dangerous looking. So they kind of come off a little like lighthearted, and I think Ridley too also kind of has that effect where he's not menacing, so he kind of looks a little not cute, but like maybe feeble. I don't know what the word is. He looks weird. He looks off.
Yeah, he looks just not like Ridley. Would be the
Yeah.
best way I can think to describe it. But by default,
Mm.
because it's our only one, that's our number one.
Ooh,
So let's move on
in the
to
lead.
our second Ridley fight, which is the Ridley fight from Super Metroid. And this is kind of two fights in one. And like maybe that's cheating a little bit, but the first fight I think is kind of integral setup to the second fight, even though it happens like pretty much the entire game apart. Um, I love the fact that you actually can't beat Ridley when you first start fighting him the first time, and then he makes his getaway, and like it feels like you have a little bit more like personal animosity kind of built up for when you actually get to Ridley's lair, and like the lead up to get to Ridley's lair too really plays a big part in it. You see all the statues and like you see like all this like stuff. You got the fire of Norfair coming up. I think that like that is almost as important as the fight itself. Just like getting into the moment or like the feel of the fight. What say you?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I definitely agree that they're certainly interconnected. And I mean, I wouldn't even really consider like the first portion of fight at all. And it's barely an extension of the second portion of like the fight. But yeah, it is certainly like story wise and feel wise and tonally a build up to the second part of the fight. And I love that. And I like that like you're not going to easily just take them out at the beginning of the game. You're kind of forced to trudge on regardless of your results. And the fight itself is obviously a solid fight. Yeah, I love that build up into it. Would you? I feel like I want to see the other games on this list so we can compare it a little more. Personally, this Super Metroid fight is iconic. It is lacking in some ways for me though. Um, in terms of the actual gameplay and fight itself, but I think what this like fight does so well is like yeah the build up into the fight and the aesthetic of like the arena you're fighting in gives you that like claustrophobic kind of feel, and Ridley's going nuts,
Yes.
and obviously that's where we get like that. Even though it was like a boss theme back then, this is really where you start to see like, oh, this is the Ridley theme though. Like this is like the Ridley fight, even though it was just really a more of a general boss theme back then. So yeah, I think what the Super Metroid fight does really well is it sets up like aesthetically what a Ridley fight looks like very well, and it is what we think of too.
Yeah, it's kind of like like the NES Ridley fight came first, but like this is the prototype for all the Ridley
Exactly.
fights that follow it.
Yeah.
You know what about the actual fight itself? One thing that I love about fighting Ridley in the Metroid series, and this is almost in every game to a certain extent,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in Super Metroid, is like in a lot of bosses, like I'll use the Zelda series as an example. Like you're fighting a boss and like they have a weak point and you have to expose it and you have to like capitalize on that weak point while it's out and then they take it back.
Mm-hmm.
And like in certain fights in the series with Ridley, that that's the case, but like a lot of times it's just a brawl, and
Yeah.
especially in this fight, it's like a big brawl. Like you can hit Ridley anywhere and it does damage, but like it's just you actually have to hit him because he's moving so fast. He's going all over the place. He hits so hard. I love that. Or like it's just like it feels like a fight, and like you are pelting him with missiles and super missiles. Some of them are connecting, some of them aren't. His tail is going crazy. He can drag you up, pick you up.
Yeah.
It's like this is a brawl. Like this is a fight. And I do love bosses that like you have to implement a certain strategy for. I love fighting Ridley, and like it just feels like a hoss fight, like, and this is going to be a running theme I think that you're going to see from me in all the Ridley fights. But like, God, I love that where it's like it's a slap down, knuckles out brawl, and it feels like so satisfying when you actually finally beat him. I agree with you that like gameplay wise, like there really isn't much to it. You just run around and you pelt him with as many missiles as you can and try not to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
But like I kind of like that. Like I like the like difference in that fight because you don't necessarily get that in a lot of fights. And for obvious reasons, because I think that people want you to be a little bit more like thinking when you're fighting a boss. But like to me, with what it sets up earlier, where like Ridley has stolen the baby Metroid and like slaughtered everyone on the space station, like this should be a brawl. It should be personal. It shouldn't be pretty. You know what I mean? And like I think that this fight more than any other fight in the series really like just exemplifies the brawl and the grudge match aspect of it. I love it.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong there. I think that's the across the board for I would say every 2D Ridley fight is that's like both a strength and a weakness of those boss fights. That yeah, what's great about it is that it's just crazy. You're just pumping missiles into Ridley, and you're both like going nuts on each other and just letting loose as much as you can. Yeah, it is very satisfying, but it can be a little repetitive at times. And yeah, there is no strategy, and essentially you're mostly mashing and kind of just like working with the pattern. And I'm not like in terms of technical means or a speed run or anything like super like uh I'm not like an expert in terms of like which boss fight is like technically harder than the others, but I always remember the Super Metroid fight not being too hard. Like the pattern wasn't really hard to exploit, so a lot of the times it really just became like that mash fest, which is fun. And trust me, I'm a masher, to heart, dude. I love mashing. But yeah, it doesn't always have like the depth of it, and I think that's that kind of rings true for the Super Metroid fight. But that being said, yes, I 100% agree. It is very satisfying, and I love that about the Ridley fights. It does have that personal element of you guys are just like you're both just letting loose on each other and not stopping until the smoke clears, and even then you're still firing. So I think that fight definitely it really captures that very well, and you see it a lot across a lot of the 2D Ridley fights too.
Yeah, that's actually like a pretty good point. Is the one that you just made, where like it can be repetitive, because actually even on my own list where I love that about Super Metroid, where you just like pound the hell out of the button and you're just firing missiles as fast as you can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it necessarily works in other games and other fights. So like I kind of like that in particular in Super Metroid, but I think you're right. It's maybe overdone a little bit in some of the latter fights, which we'll get to in a little bit here.
Mm.
But yeah, I really love the way that like I said, this is just a drag 'em out brawl, And I think that we can probably both agree that this is probably number one, and the Metroid or the Ridley fight from Metroid is number two on our list here so far. Is that fair to say?
Yes, we have number 1 Super Ridley and number 2 NES Ridley.
All right, let's move on, and I think we're gonna get to our first difference in our list here and talk about Meta Ridley from Metroid Prime. And when I thought about my favorite Ridley fights in the series, I was just like Meta Ridley from Metroid Prime is probably number one for me. And like the more I thought about it, the more I actually was like, I actually don't know that that's true because I think I remember it more fondly than it actually was. There's a couple big components for a great Ridley fight in my mind, and that's music. That's like that brawl atmosphere, that kind of claustrophobic atmosphere, and like how scary he looks, and really, or how intimidating he looks. And I think that Meta Ridley looks the coolest out of any Ridleys. But then, for me, I don't know, for whatever reason, the music isn't quite as intense as I think it needs to be. And there's something like when you're fighting Meta Ridley in Prime, it kind of loses its momentum a little bit when he goes and like flies away continuously for half the fight. I think that the fight actually really picks up when Ridley loses his wings, but like at that point, I think you have to take out like 75% of his health at that point. So it's a little bit frustrating watching him fly around and whatever, waiting for him to come in and attack. So I think this is still like a pretty high fight for me, but it's not as high as I initially thought it would be when I really sat down and analyzed it. And I was a little bit surprised because I always remember this fight fondly, but thinking back on it, it is missing some elements that make a great Ridley fight to me. Dak, I'm assuming that this is probably pretty high up there.
This is the best Ridley fight in the damn franchise. This is the best fight.
Hold on. So
number one.
You were, before we started recording, I was like, I know what your number one fight is. You were like, no, you don't. And I was like, yes, I do.
No,
I just want to say that, yes, I did, sir.
No, I to be fair, to be specific, I said that you don't know what my least favorite is. So, but okay. You don't know what my least favorite is. But I mean, if you did say that this was my favorite, then yes, you're right. Yeah, this one's the best one. This one is the best Ridley fight. Like, first of all, Meta Ridley, coolest Ridley. This is peak Prime Ridley. The dude looks phenomenal. This is the best Ridley looks in the entire franchise. Second of all, the music, 100% disagree. I love the remix. It was so cool and fit perfectly with how he looked. And it was hype. It's intense. The setting, the Artifact Temple, one of the coolest locations in the entire game. The rain with the neon lights from the temple right over the cliff with the mist coming up. Are you kidding me? It's so epic. Then you have the actual fight. The first phase I think is really awesome because it shows I think it depicts Ridley so well. He's huge. He takes up so much of the sky with his wings, despite being what seems like a mile away. He's flying at 100 miles per hour, swooping around the temple. You're firing at him and all this stuff. He comes down. He's lasering at. I mean, I 100% disagree. I love the parts. You get that little lull, and you gotta all right, take a breather. He comes back in. He's flying around. You're waiting for him to pick him off, and you're waiting for that shot to get in. I love that part. I think that's so intense. And then he gets on the ground. He's right in your face. He's stomping on you. You're melting his wings. He's desperate to kill you and stuff. And then at the end, the temple combos with you to laser him into the canyon. Then he literally blows up in a huge. 10 out of 10 fight. I honestly think this is the best by far Ridley fight. And if we're talking about lead up into a fight, which we just talked about with Super, I mean, come on, Metroid Prime, you have the encounter with him on the frigate, you run into him on Fendrana, it's constantly building, you're gonna run into this dude, and then you come into Artifact Temple Letta, I'm gonna go in, fight Metroid Prime, I'm totally good. Who comes in? It's your boy swooping in. He's like, nah, son, I'm about to throw hands. And you throw hands, and it just goes in, and you unleash dude. This is hold on. The best fight. The best fight.
The setting, yeah, actually, I didn't say that, and I should have, because the setting is wicked. Good. And when you see him in Fendrana flying over, it's just this is gonna go down.
I'm gonna get you, bro. I'm getting you. Your time's coming. And then he just comes in, and that's peak Ridley too, because he's oh, I'm gonna strike when Samus needs me not to strike. Samus is about to finish the game, right? She's going to the boss. She's fine, and then Ridley's psych. You're fighting me first. You fight me first after all this buildup. Yeah, continue. But I could talk. I love this fight. I think it is the peak Ridley fight. It hits every note so perfectly. They have yet to hit it since.
I I I don't know that I agree. Like I thought that I did agree before I started analyzing it, but like the music is just it's a great track, but it's not like an intense boss track. Like it doesn't have that urgency or that viciousness or whatever like that I want from a Ridley fight. And I think that's what's missing from the beginning of this fight where like he's flying around and it's like I want a Ridley fight to be like a drag down brawl and like up close and personal. If the fight was like if the last part of this fight lasted for let's say 50 to 70% of this fight, this would probably be number one for me.
I don't know. I think it made it better that it wasn't the whole fight because that was like desperation mode. You know, it built like the fight builds up
but
to
like
that.
it's just so like you're just waiting around for him to come in, and I feel like it loses that momentum. Like when you're in the fight or whatever, and he flies away. It's like, okay, I'm ready. What are you coming? Like, hello, I'm here. Let's fight. Let's do this thing. And I get that there's like an element of strategy to that on Ridley's part, but like, man, I just want to like I want to get to it. I want to throw down. You know, I want to give this guy what's coming to him.
Yeah, but he's not trying to just take shots, bro. He's trying to, he's trying to win too. That's what I like about it. Like that, the other Ridley fight, and again, I go back to the what we were just talking about, how like it's a blessing and a curse. So, like, yeah, you can just run and mash in his face, but you lose, I think, a little bit of the fun when you can just run up to the boss and just mash A. You know, I like that Ridley's like, I'm getting kind of bodied right now. I'm gonna dip. And slow it down.
But you can do that in this fight too, because like at the end of it,
right?
You get up close and personal, but you still have to target his chest in order to bring him down. So it's not like you can just mash away. And like,
exactly.
I think that could have been cool, but like you spend most of the fight waiting for him to like come back and fly around and stuff like that. And like I think it loses a little something there. I'm not saying that this is like. I still think it's in my upper echelon of Ridley fights, but man, when I was actually thinking about it, I was like, okay, the music isn't like as vicious as I want it to be. He's flying around, like I wanted it to be a little bit more of an up close brawl, and like I don't think you get that.
But like if you listen to the Super Metroid music, it's not vicious. It's not. It's the same song, but like it's like in like Super Nintendo like beep boops. It's kind of worse. Like so.
But what makes it awesome though is because like you have just the pounding of the missiles, the screaming of Ridley.
But that's not the song. But that's not the track.
Yeah,
that's not the track. That's not the track
atmosphere.
though. But that's not the track. If we're gonna go with the same criteria, the track, specifically the track for Super Metroid, that's the most basic Ridley track. Almost every other Ridley theme after the Super Metroid Ridley theme is better or builds on it. So if we're gonna go by, the track is good in Super Metroid, well, it's really not. It's the weakest one. It's the most fundamental one.
But that I disagree. I think the track in Super Metroid is
that one's so weak.
It's more of a banger
than
Meta Ridley.
No
like,
way!
That one,
no, you're bugging.
Yes,
you're
is.
capping. Captain Crunch over here. Captain Crunch.
That one is just a little bit too like it's. I don't want to say it's elevator music, but like it's a great track, but it's not the same level of intensity.
You're killing me.
You need
here,
intensity.
No, that's intense, dude. It's intense.
Intensity.
You're killing me. You're killing me here. That's so intense. We need the track needs to be played. How about this? When you go and you are cutting this episode, I want you to play both songs while we're just had that argument, and I want you to tell me which version is more intense. Okay. And I bet you the meta version.
This is what we're gonna do.
This
is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go and ask our listeners right now. If you're listening to this, we're gonna run a poll at Omega Metroid Pod. Which track slaps harder, Ridley from Super Metroid or Ridley from Metroid Prime?
Versus Ridley from Super Metroid or versus Ridley from versus Meta Ridley from Metroid Prime. Yeah.
All right. At Omega Metroid Pod. Dak, we need to settle this though. Is this? I mean, obviously Ridley from Metroid is last. Super Metroid is above for me.
Right, here's what I think we should do, because I feel like we'll be here all night trying to decide which one's over the other one. I think right now, for now, we should keep Super Metroid and Metroid Prime tied, because come back to it because
okay.
I think if we'll take the whole episode just trying to decide which one of those two is better. I think we should get to the other one.
Okay, I love that. That's a good idea.
All right, so we'll keep Super and Prime tied for first right now, and then we'll put
so at 1.
Yeah.
Meta Ridley from Metroid Prime. Also at 1, Ridley from Super Metroid. And at 3, Ridley from Metroid. Yeah, you're absolutely right. This could get derailed real quick.
We have to do another episode just for that.
People have stopped listening because we're screaming at each other. But you know what? I don't care. Let's keep going. let's talk about Ridley X from Metroid Fusion. Dak, I've been going first here, so give me your thoughts.
It's funny because on my list I actually have Ridley X over the Super Metroid fight. So this is my favorite 2D Metroid Ridley fight, but I might be biased because I'm a big Metroid Fusion fan. The reason I love this fight though is I like the pattern a little more compared to like Super Metroid and Zero Mission. It feels a little different and a little harder from my experience. It wasn't just pogos, it wasn't just fireballs, a little mix of the two. That fight always felt the most claustrophobic to me because he's so big and like his claws and head are so huge and he takes up so much of the room. He's always felt like that fight always was kind of scary to me as a kid. Even going back to the other Ridley fights afterward, but that one I just was like, damn, this was a hard fight. And of course, you have the iconic Ridley X scream, which they even used again in Zero Mission because it was that good. Everyone loves that. Everyone loves that scream. Everyone loves the Ridley sound effects from Fusion, which is that's nostalgic for me as well. So I'm a big fan of this fight. I really do like it. It's for me, it's the highest ranking 2D Ridley fight. So yeah, I like this one. And I like that there's the X particle or the X core fight afterward too, which I don't know if we count
Here
that.
we go. Okay, I went the other direction, Dak.
Okay.
I don't love this fight. Although you know what, I have to say, from there, so there's 10 Ridley fights, right? And I think that 10 and 9 are like not good, but I think from like 8 to 1, those are all really good.
Oh, for sure. I
So
agree.
like
Yeah.
when I say that it's like at the lower tier, like it's not really at a lower tier. But this one is like it's on the latter half of my list. And the reason being is that like Ridley looks really cool. He looks almost like a zombie, which I mean
He's
I guess he
nuts.
like kind of is.
Yeah, he is.
But I
Kind
don't
of.
know, for whatever reason, and I think that maybe I feel like this fight the way you feel about Super is like every time I've played Fusion, which is quite a bit, I get to Ridley and like I murder this guy. I murder him. And like maybe I'm overpowered or something, or maybe I collect too much or whatever, but like I feel like even just the beams that you have at this point in the game,
Yeah.
like you just slay this dragon in like no time flat. Like this guy is like a turkey on Thanksgiving. He's cooked, he's done, he's out. So I think that like I like the look of him, but to me, it's just kind of like a lesser fight than Super Metroid because it's kind of the same thing. You're blasting him, and like I said, I love that in Super Metroid, and I do like that in the Ridley fights. But like, yeah, I don't know. This is just okay to me. Like it's okay. I don't know another way to put it other than that. Like it's
That's fair.
cool. He looks cool, and I wish he was a little bit harder or had more health or like I don't know something.
Yeah.
But and yeah, I mean, obviously it's because I played Super first, and it was kind of the opposite for you. But yeah, I put this one a little bit lower on my
That's the
list.
thing is, maybe my perception of their difficulties is off, because I thought the Fusion one was harder than the Super one, but maybe I like 2020 DAC, I got to go back and play both of them side by side because I haven't played Fusion or Super in 2020, I will admit. Um But that being said, yeah, I do. I feel like this is a fair take. This is a fair take because at the end of the day, the Super, the Zero Mission, and the Fusion fights are probably all the most similar ones, or like they all take
Right.
elements from each other or build, whatever. So that's kind of hard. I think you can kind of like mix and match a little bit there. Maybe it comes down to preference a little bit. And yeah, I think it comes down to me also maybe misremembering the difficulty on the boss fights too. Maybe you're right. I don't remember all. Maybe I just sucked when I played Fusion at first.
Well, I mean, misremembering isn't right. Like when you play a game for the first time, like it's either hard or it's not. Like
Yeah.
I remember Ridley being hard. Actually, I remember Kraid being quite hard the first time I ever played it. But like to put in context, I was also pretty young.
Hmm.
So like if it's the same with Fusion, like if you're fighting Nightmare, like even now I think Nightmare is really hard. But like
Fun boss. Love
I don't.
Nightmare.
Yeah, like I don't think that it's like misremembering so much as like a different experience or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, I I would rank this number 3 on our list right now, above Metroid and below our dual number 1 champions. I think that's fair.
Yeah. I think that's a fine place to put it for now. Or for Yes, 100% Ridley X here, below Super and Meta for sure.
All right, so at number one, we've got Super Metroid Ridley and Meta Ridley from Prime. We've got Ridley X at number three, and we've got Ridley at number four from the original Metroid. So let's, I actually, and it's kind of a cool thing that you mentioned too, because I feel like you really nailed it on the head. Ridley from Other M, geez Louise. Ridley from Zero Mission, rather. Sorry, I got so many Ridley fights going on here, it's hard to keep track. So Ridley from Zero Mission. I also had this ranked pretty low on my list. It's actually lower than Fusion. So again, just kind of like the same thing as Super Metroid, just like a lesser version. Like it's better than Metroid, but it's worse than Super, I think. Like I actually don't really have a whole lot to say about this fight. Like it's just, you've seen it, you've done it, you know what to expect. It is what it is.
Yeah, I would say this one is probably like out of those three, I would probably put like Super Fusion, Fusion Super, whatever, and then like Zero Mission. I do like it doesn't really do too much different. I don't remember this fight even being too hard either. I think it was more fireball-y
It's
heavy
not.
than like pogo and grab heavy. Um, I do like the little cinematics that accompany the fights. And now that I think about this, when we were talking about like Super, I think all the Ridley fights in every game kind of build up pretty well. Like with Fusion, there's the build up with like you find like his corpse earlier, and then you end up running into it. With Zero Mission. You have the little cinematics. Ridley shows up on his ship, and then eventually shows up to the fight. So actually, I think that's something that consistently happens pretty or is done pretty well for all the Ridley fights is the build up, because I think they all know that one-on-one between Samus and Ridley. That's one of the big fights on the card, in the game. So
Oh, that's like the main
yeah,
event.
so the Zero Mission fight again, yeah, like I agree with you. Is all these fights they're all good fights for the most part. So it's like even if this is lower on the list, it's still pretty solid boss or whatever. It's not bad necessarily, but yeah, this is definitely kind of I would put this lower than Super and Ridley X, because it kind of does what Super does, but it's not really that crazy intense. This is the one that's always felt very mashy, like, oh, I just steamroll through you for Ridley bosses for me. This is the one that's always been the all right, I'm done, GG, like get deleted. See you next time. But that being said, and this is again something that all the fights do well. I love like the presentation, the music is hype. I love that they reuse the Fusion Ridley voices for no reason. Um, so I don't, even though like they probably shouldn't have just for lore reasons, but whatever, it's fine. Who cares? And I think he looks really cool. I love the Zero Mission sprite. I think he looks awesome. So and the arena looks really cool. So yeah, this is not a bad fight, but I probably one of the lower 2D Metroid 2D Ridley fights. I would put this below Ridley X, but above NES Ridley.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Actually, the sprite does look really
I
cool.
love it. It
Also,
looks so cool. Honestly, Zero Mission in general, one of the best looking Game Boy Advance games, I think. And the artwork they did, the concept work, and the artwork, like 2D, like frame cinematics they
yes.
do in the game, and the overall like pixel work in game. Zero Mission looks really good. Whereas Fusion looked good, but I mean it's 2001 Game Boy Advance game. It was a little limited in some ways. Zero Mission, I think, really looked very good for its time.
Yeah, I think it
So
looks
yeah,
phenomenal.
love that sprite.
Really cool box art too for Zero Mission. But yeah, this fight it kind of is what it is. It's nothing great. So I think that we both agree that this is probably above Metroid, but below
Yeah,
Fusion
fun
and
fight, but
Super
nothing
Prime.
special.
Now, you kind of mentioned it when we started talking about
Yeah,
this
my
fight,
bad.
and this is another reason why I feel like this fight is lower to me, is because it gets overshadowed in its own game by Robot Ridley or Mecha Ridley. I think
You
that a
think
lot of people
so?
don't really like this fight, but like I love it. I like it a lot. And like, is it one of my absolute favorite Ridley fights? No. Like, is it technically even a Ridley fight? I don't know. Maybe not. But like, I love the idea of like playing Zero Mission and like you think the game's over, but then you do this whole extra content on the ship and stuff like that, and then like you have this extra final boss, and it's like it's such a departure from the usual Ridley fights, and where Ridley is this agile, fast striker, and like here he's like this giant tank, and he still it's kind of a mix of like, you do want to hit that one particular spot on him, but you still have some of that Super Metroid-y kind of vibes where like you can nail that spot as much as you can. There's tons of firepower coming at you. I don't think that this is a very like beloved Ridley fight, but I like it. What about you?
I again, yeah, this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier. Yes, this is a fight for me that I like, and I think general consensus among fans that it's not like a favored, like no one really likes this fight too much, which I can understand. It is a bit of a departure. I don't think in the best way for most Ridley fights, because at least with other Ridley fights, you do have the ability or freedom to go from corner to corner for the most part. Whereas this one, you're
Yeah.
locked in one area, and it essentially becomes just a jumping game. You're just jumping in place and shooting. So it's a almost a Kraid fight. It's not really even a Ridley fight. It's really a Kraid fight if you think about it. The gameplay is identical to Kraid boss fights. So for that reason, I think it's a pretty weak Ridley fight because it's not even really a Ridley fight at all. So I would put it pretty low on my list. But aside from that, I think the Ridley robot concept is really cool. I like Ridley like building this robot that looks like him and like it's left unfinished. And I like the theory of like, oh, some of the parts from the Ridley robot might have been used to or for Meta Ridley because chronologically Metroid Prime takes place right after. That's a cool thought that I've always liked. I think he looks cool. I love where he shows up in the game. So pretty much, and yeah, the gameplay. I never thought he was like an unfun boss. And again, pretty much all these boss fights I think are fun and enjoy them. That's one of the reasons why Ridley's one of my favorite characters. And I do think the Ridley robot fight is fun, but it is a limited fight. It is easy. I think this is even more so than the Zero Mission Ridley boss fight too. Like the actual Ridley fight, this one is I think very easy. I mean, you're just spamming super missile shots in two places. Like it's very simple. It doesn't really ask too much from you technically, and you really don't even have to move. And it's the last boss too, so I think it's a little like in terms of difficulty underwhelming because it's not even as hard as like other things that directly preceded it in the game boss wise. You might even like make the argument that like the Chozo test to get the power suit might be harder. So yeah, not something that's like very well liked, but in my opinion, I don't think it's a bad fight. I liked it. I never hated it as a kid or anything, and I enjoyed it. I think it's a cool little character they put together. But yeah, a lower ranked boss fight for me as well.
Okay, so where are you thinking that this boss fight ranks in our list so far? I could maybe suggest above Ridley from Zero Mission, but below Ridley X. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I could do that. That's yeah. I can make that deal. Make that deal.
Okay, so we have at our list at number one, Super Metroid Ridley. Also at number one, Meta Ridley from Metroid Prime. At number three, Ridley X. At number four, the Ridley Robot. At number five, Zero Mission Ridley. And at number six, Ridley from Metroid. Let's keep going here and talk about low key the most underrated Ridley fight in this entire series, I think, and that is versus Meta Ridley in Metroid Prime 3 Corruption.
Love
Dude,
this fight.
I love this fight.
Absolutely.
I love this fight.
Yeah.
It's so freaking cool. Like, and it's cool for like a bunch of different reasons. First of all, it's like when you start this fight, it's actually towards the beginning of the game. So like,
it's the very
it
beginning
kind
of
of
the
feels
game.
like.
I think, right?
I mean,
think
yeah,
it's the first thing you do in the game. Is the
It's like it's almost an opening sequence, like
it's
when
like the opening scene
when the base
much.
is getting attacked.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that like you see Ridley leading this attack. Meta Ridley has come back. He's obviously not at full strength after what happened in Metroid Prime, so I like that kind of carries over. I like that way. Like it's just different that it takes place at the beginning of the game. I think it gives it a certain, I don't know, like a different vibe to it, and like obviously the fight itself is just like so cool because like Ridley grabs you and you're falling down this generator, you're free falling and like you're brawling basically in the air, and like the way that he kind of attacks you, but it's also just like kind of, I don't know, it's got that brawl kind of vibe to it where like both of you are just free falling, you're trying to keep heads and tails, like everything's just like going crazy around you. It's just so different that I think that it was like so cool the way it was executed. And I always think of Gandalf fighting the Balrog when this is going down. This always reminded me of that, which is like major props in my book. Dak, what say you?
I love this fight. This is another iconic moment in the series. It's so sick. I mean, this is one of the things I love about Metroid Prime. And I remember as a kid, watching like E3 on like G4 on TV, and they were talking about this game and showing it off. And this fight was like the demo for Metroid Prime 3 at E3 that year, whatever year it was. They were showing it off at the show. And I mean, it just looks so sick. I was like, wow, this is awesome. It wasn't even just like the shaft part, like going down the ventilation shaft was so sick, but like they have the part where you're rolling around and your morph ball in the tubes as Ridley's like clawing down on you and trying to bite at you, and you're trying to
That was
move
cool.
through the level a little bit before you actually get to the big fight. And then it showed off a lot of the cool motion control stuff you could do that you end up utilizing right after in the game. So yeah, and the fight is hype. It's the and what I like is that they reuse the same music from Metroid Prime. So like, yes, let's go, like round two, baby. Like I'm like I love that about Corruption. They just get right back into it. Like, oh, like you're throwing hands with Ridley ASAP. Just like in Metroid Prime, like the first things you do is interact with Ridley as well. No, not as immediate. In Prime 3, you do that too. I love this fight. This is very high on my list. Um,
I agree. It's very high on my
yeah,
list
and
too.
this is and Metroid Prime, the original Metroid Prime, I think is it's the first Metroid game that introduced like phased Ridley fights. You got the winged phase, you got the ground phase, and this one has its phases too. But I love how more dynamic the phases are. They're very different from one another. You got the morph ball section, a little more shooting. You got the ventilation shaft. So I like that they really like ramped it up a little more, and it's so in character for Ridley. Just be like, I'm putting my whole body on the line. I'm all in because I'm just trying to make sure you're dead. And Runda's coming in to save you. Because that's a fight too that I would say those are one of the only two times that Ridley has beaten Samus. The first time would be Super Metroid, I guess, since you can't really beat him and he gets away. And in this one, if Runda didn't show up, Samus was 100% dead. So Ridley, as far as I'm concerned, got the W and was going 1-0 into the Omega Ridley fight at the end of Prime 3. So, or I guess that would be 1-1, and from Metroid Prime. So,
The rubber
if we're
match.
yeah, exactly. That's the tiebreaker. So yeah, I really love this fight. This is a high rank on me. This is like just brings me back to the hype from Prime 3 and the Wii and enjoying that game a lot. And it's a really intense fight. And again, one of the reasons I love Ridley, and of course it's Meta Ridley yet again. So yeah, this is a high ranker for me.
Yeah, I love it for everything that you just said. I also think that this is like it makes really good use of the Wiimote,
Exactly.
which like at the time was like still a little bit gimmicky. Nobody knew how it was going to be in like first person, but like it made good use of that, and like just such a cool vibe. It was so different and so like just it was awesome. Like I don't know what else to say. Like you have the wicked looking Meta Ridley. You have just like this sense of urgency. You can see like in meters how much you're falling, and like you have that timer. Like I love it. I think that it's like it's fantastic. So yeah, this is really high for me too. I actually I'm almost wondering, Dak, if we should compromise and say since both of us want Super and Prime respectively to be number one, but don't agree on that. I almost wonder if we should make this number one because it sounds like we both are liking it quite a
I
bit.
mean, on my list, this is below the Metroid Prime fight and above the Super Metroid fight. So, the Metroid Prime fight is still above this fight for me, but this is right below it actually. So, um,
So yeah, so on my list,
ah,
this is right below Super, and then a couple spots ahead of Prime. So I don't know. What say you? We could compromise and make this number one.
that's not a compromise for me. For me, right now, I would put it below Meta and Super, but above Ridley X.
Okay, let's do that. So we got Meta Ridley from Corruption in number three. Of course, we still got a tie at number one for Super and Prime. We've got Ridley X at four, Ridley Robot at five, Ridley from Zero Mission at six, and Ridley from Metroid at seven. We're getting to the end of the list here, the bottom half. We're going long, but by God, we're gonna finish this out as long as it takes. Let's keep going and let's stick with Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. Omega Ridley. Dak, what are your thoughts?
This one is actually a lower ranked one. I think this is the worst 3D Ridley fight. This one is not great. I think the strongest part is the Ridley theme remix. I think it's pretty cool.
The music,
The
yeah,
music
it's
is
awesome.
great. But for a fight, it's not that great. It's kind of like it's a cheaper version of the original Metroid Prime fight. And he kind of has some weird animations that make him look a little goofy. Um, it's an okay fight. I mean, it's not a bad fight by any means, but it's definitely one of my least favorite 3D Ridley fights. I think it just kind of like it doesn't really like. Whereas the original, or I'm sorry, the Meta Ridley fight from Corruption, I think really does kind of like taint things up a notch compared to the first Metroid Prime fight, which I still think is superior. But I definitely like how they built on it from Corruption and did things a little different. This one, it kind of does it. It's okay, it's a good fight, but his animations look a little weird. The patterns are not that, it's not a hard fight by any means. The patterns are a little okay. And yeah, not my favorite 3D Ridley fight. Decent fight, but it's like a middle of the pack, maybe lower fight for me.
You know what? I literally slapped it in the middle. It's number 5 on my
Yeah,
list. Yeah,
it's decent.
it's you're right. It's not like a hard fight, but it's just a long fight. Like it takes forever.
It does.
I
It
feel
does.
like when you
Yeah,
fight.
it does too. It does drag along, and that's the thing. I keep going back to the original Metroid Prime fight where I disagree with you. Where it doesn't. You're kind of like waiting around for him. Those moments where you're waiting around for me feel tense, and so like it doesn't feel like I'm like waiting around. At least for me, this fight it doesn't. I'm waiting around because he's doing some stupid like goofy like arm flailing thing, or he's flying around a little bit, but like we're still in this like phase in like this small phase in seed, not small, but it's not as big as like the artifact temple, which again like that made it feel so wide and spacious. In this fight, not as much. um yeah, it kind of loses that scale a little bit, and it does kind of drag because the fighting doesn't feel as intense, so you are kind of waiting, and you're like, all right, like let's go, like I'm waiting for this particular thing for you to do so I can kill you. Yeah, so
Yeah, there's a few things about this fight I think that work. Like I actually like I like the confinement of the fight a little bit more, because that the like I think Ridley fights are at their best when they're close quarters, generally speaking. But yeah, I don't know, like it's just a long fight. It's kind of a slog. It goes on for far too long, and like it's on one hand it's maybe the most complete Ridley fight in terms of like you have to use a lot of your arsenal in order to actually beat him. Like you need to use your grapple hook, you need to use some different beams, different visors. But like, does anybody want to do that fighting Ridley? You know what I mean? Like it's great that you can and you have to do all these things, but like, man, when I fight Ridley,
no, you want to
like
go
I
at
said,
it.
I want it to be this brawl. Yeah, I want to go at it. That's another, that's the biggest reason why the Prime fight doesn't rank higher for me, and it's another reason why this fight is just a little bit lower, because like I feel like Ridley fights are better served in their sprints instead of marathons. So like you go all out, balls to the walls, and then like it's done. Whereas this one, it's like, okay, this is a test of endurance rather than like this big fight. I do agree though. I think the music rocks. I think that Omega Ridley looks creepy, like he looks
He
scary,
does look, yeah,
but
he's weird.
it's like the longer it goes, the less I like it.
Well, you know what it is? It's like it's the difference for me between like an awesome 60 minute Iron Man match, and then like Triple H and like Batista, hitting each other for 45 minutes, and it feels like it's going for 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like I
Yeah,
agree that
that's
it's
a good one.
yes, a lot of Ridley fights are really good at the confined and short sprint, and you're just going at each other. But again, what I liked about Metroid Prime is I did like the moments where you are like right in each other's faces and he's right on you, and like he's even dashing and like building up and just blast right it through. Like I love how Ridley can, and that's what the Metroid Prime fight does so well, is it shows off how like fast he can be for his size too. Whereas like the Prime 3 fight, he's so like goofy and like clumsy looking almost, like he feels like, which maybe that was intentional, like they were trying to show that because he's all corrupted by phasins, so maybe he's a little off, but I don't know. Like every time I remember that fight, I remember the animations from Metroid Prime, and even a lot of the stuff he does in the beginning of Corruption, where he feels like fierce and agile and stuff. And then I remember the Prime 3 fight, and he like feels like almost sloppy-ish. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not necessarily against the longer fight as long as it has those spots, it has those moments that keep it hype and the intensity's ramped up. And I don't. Again, I like the Prime 3 and boss fight. It isn't one of my favorites, no, and but it is kind of missing some of that I get in the other Ridley fights.
You know what actually I think hurts this fight, and it seems obvious when you say it, but like you had such a wicked Ridley fight already in this game,
True. Yeah.
and like this is obviously they're vastly different fights, but like it's hard not to compare them, and like this one happens after, so you've already seen Ridley, you've already had that one big fight, so like you don't really have the same kind of build up as you do in like the other Ridley fights, and like it's just not as fun of a fight, so like by comparison, those are like two knocks against it right away.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I would be interested to hear where you want to rank this in our list right now.
I would put this because I would put this below Ridley X, but above Ridley Robot. Personally, I think even though it's still kind of weak compared to the other 3D Ridley fights, I still don't think it's a bad fight. I think the music's still really cool. I do agree the place where you fight is pretty sick. And it's still a 3D Ridley fight, which are still my favorites a lot of the time. I think the Ridley, because to put it like below the Ridley robot fight, I don't know if I could do that. I still think the Ridley robot fight is very limited, and I almost would even argue that maybe the Zero Mission fight might have to be above it at the end of the day. But I think the Ridley, like, I will give points to the Prime 3 Corruption Omega Ridley fight because you do like get to do a little more. You are forced to use a little more of your arsenal. Do you want to do that necessarily? No, but I'd rather do that than like stand in place and not be able to move at all, which the Ridley robot fight is all about. So that's where I would put it. I would put it below Ridley X from Fusion, above Ridley Robot from Zero Mission.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking too. I'll fight for Ridley Robot above Ridley from Zero Mission, but I wouldn't fight for.
I wouldn't
above,
die on that hill.
Omega
I wouldn't
Ridley.
die on that hill.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
I think that like by virtue of Ridley Robot just being different, I think that that's cool. But like, is it different enough in a way that's better than Omega, which is kind of like it has its flaws, but at the end of the day, I mean, you're right. There's that awesome music. It's an awesome 3D Ridley fight. I think that I would agree and say, let's put it above the robot and maybe below Ridley X. And Ridley X is actually like pretty far down on my list, but I can at least appreciate that it's a cool 2D fight. I think it's better than maybe not better necessarily, but I can see the appeal of it. So yeah, I think I'm okay with that.
Okay, so we're at right now in first place, Meta Ridley and Super Ridley, and third,
Yes.
Corruption Meta Ridley, and fourth, Ridley X.
We're at fifth is Omega Ridley now, and then sixth is Ridley Robot, seventh Zero Mission, and then eighth is Metroid One's version of Ridley. Let's bang it out. We've got two more to go. Where this is probably going to be our longest show ever, but YOLO, who cares?
I don't know. The
all right,
Q&A
let's
one
talk
was
about
there.
it.
That was a long one.
Oh, I think we'll have lots to say about our next one. Let's talk about it. It is Other M's version of Ridley, and I think they just call this thing Ridley, but like you can call it the little bird, the clone. I call it bad. This is not one of my favorite Ridley fights, and for a couple reasons. Okay. I think, let's start off with the positives. I think the music is pretty good, and like the actual fight itself, like without any context, without anything in it, I think the actual fight itself is kind of okay. Like, I actually think Other M, the game, like, is kind of okay. It plays kind of okay. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
I don't know what you mean.
As a game, it's not, like...
Wrong.
I don't think it's,
Wrong,
like, absolutely awful. But hear me out. I think it's, like... at an average game. So I think that this fight is average. Like, it's everything else surrounding this fight that I just, like... I don't like it at all. Like, I think that, like... Little Bird, first of all, turning into Ridley is dumb. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. I hate the lead up to this fight where like Samus is crippled by fear, even though at this point she's already beaten Ridley like 5 different times. So like everything about the lead up to this fight I think is hideous, and it really betrays who Samus is as a character. I think that Ridley. I actually think that Ridley looks really bad. Like
Mhm.
his design looks really bad. He looks kind of like he looks like a Pokemon or something almost. He doesn't look menacing. He looks almost like I, I don't know. He looks like a Resident Evil monster, but like Resident Evil from like Resident Evil 0, which was on the GameCube in 2002. Like this does not look very good graphically, I don't think. So the fight is average. The build up is horrendous. Ridley looks stupid. The music is cool, but I mean, everything else against it, I think that this is probably one of the worst Ridley fights, if not the worst.
As much as I hate Other M as a game, I truly, truly despise it. I tried to keep it to just the boss fight itself, and not like the lead up and all of that. And I honestly don't think it wasn't as bad as I remembered. It's certainly not. It's like if you're trying to think of like high points in this game, I think this is one of them, but it's relative, because the game is so bad that like for this to be a high point doesn't mean much. I think the boss fight is bad because the game itself is bad because like you can like Ridley actually kind of looks like like his animations aren't like not bad. I think he looks awful, and I don't agree that it's even Ridley at all. It's like so I don't think it's Ridley. It's some like weird organism that they mixed up with something else, and that's why it's a Pokemon. That's why it has weird three Pokemon stages, and why it's for some reason super yoked out of its mind. It's just like jacked out of its skull for no reason. It has some weird beak that doesn't look like all that stuff, right? I'll just besides that, the problem with Other M is that a stupid invincible dodge move that you can spam, right? So all the traditional stuff that Ridley does literally doesn't work. Like his pogo, like his tail stab, you just spam that move and he literally can't hit you. His like jumping like ground pound like beam, like wave energy wave doesn't work because invincible dodge move or easy jump because it's coming, and then you just run up to him and you shoot him in the face and that's it. The boss fight is really not that good, but it would be better in another game. I think if they like tried to maybe do it in another Metroid game, it'd probably be better. But the fact that Other M is so bad makes it worse. The music is hype. I think the where you fight him is cool. He looks stupid. The fight is pretty easy because of how Other M works. It doesn't really do anything different that other Ridley fights already haven't done. So, but is it like horrible? No, because I've seen what horrible is, and that's the rest of the game. So, I would say it's definitely very. I mean, it's very low on my list. I would even say, yeah, it's very low on my list. It's not great. The music kind of carries it. If Other M was a better game, it'd be a better boss fight.
Yeah, I think that that's fair. You're probably right that the gameplay mechanics don't help this fight at all because, like, you like you said, you dodge the pogo attack, you can beat him super easily, but like for me, it's just impossible to ignore the lead up to this fight because I feel like that's
its own
such an
thing. It's
important
so
thing.
bad. Yeah, it is. It does. I mean, the fact that Ridley himself is just completely butchers a character and is Samus. Yeah, I mean, for some, I don't
You
know.
know what
It's
though?
so bad.
Like the premise behind it isn't awful. Like the premise of the space pirates like cloning something and like it's slowly evolving into
Well,
like
the
a new
Federation
clone
cloned him,
Ridley.
right?
Or I'm sorry, the Federation. Like that's not like
I.
that's not like an awful premise, really. But like
You don't think
it's
making him a
executed so
Pokemon is a bad
terribly.
premise?
I think it could have been okay. Like it kind of to go back to Alien. Like you could have shown like the xenomorph starts out as like the chest burster and like it slowly kind of grows a little bit and it finally reaches its like final menacing form. I think it could be done and it could be okay, but like you have to strictly say that it's a clone.
I think it's.
You know,
I mean, my thing is that again, it goes back to like I don't think everything needs to be explained. We don't need to know what Ridley had for breakfast when he was 16 before high school or whatever it was. We don't need to know where his origin is as far as I'm concerned. Like what makes him like I like that there's a little bit of mystery
and
to
I
it.
agree with that. I
But
agree
that
with
being
that.
said, like I don't yes, the premise that someone cloned him, like the Federation cloning him makes sense. Yes, I agree with that. I don't think that's a bad idea. Do I agree in making him a Pokemon with 3 Pokemon evolution stages? No, I think that's super stupid. I don't think that's Ridley at all. and I think other M should be
But
thrown
hold
out.
on, because I mean, this really isn't Ridley. It's like a clone of
But
Ridley.
it's not even a
So
clone because
like
it doesn't look like
in
him, you know? Like the Ridley X clone.
well, you're
The
not
Ridley
wrong.
X
That's
clone
it
made
doesn't look like him
sense
at all.
because all of the X clones looked exaggerated from its host. That's what it did to everything. So it made sense. And even then, the Ridley X Ridley looks more like the actual Ridley than the clone that it's a clone of, because the Mother M clone doesn't even look like the actual, like every Ridley. Like I actually just had this argument with someone on Twitter or on Discord, something. Well, every Ridley looks different in every game. Well, yeah, no duh, because the games were made 20 years apart, whatever it is. But he has the same body type. He looks more or less the same. This Ridley, who is apparently a clone, which, you know, definition, it's supposed to look like the thing. It's, you know, like it's a clone. It's a direct copy. It should look at least somewhat like Ridley, but the fact that his body type, he's all super muscular, which I mean, Ridley's not muscular. He's super bony, and that's like a big part of his thing. He's this big bony dragon thing. He's super muscular. He has this beak. I don't know why he looks like that, but
I'm just saying that like the actual premise could work. Like,
I agree.
Obviously, execution in almost every aspect of Other M is unfortunately bundled. But you know, the premise could have been cool, but you know, I don't like the lead up. I think he does. He looks terrible. He's got that weird like beak mouth thing, and like they even made him like they even took that same like model and made it look cool in Smash. So like I don't know how they messed it up. So
I mean,
badly.
I mean, it's almost.
I mean, as cool as it could look though, right? Based on that model, like it looks cooler. So I just like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. This is I don't want to beat up this game too much because we're gonna go into
Because we'll beat it up. We'll kill it in another episode.
Yeah, but you know, as far as a Ridley battle goes, I think it's lower tier. You know, I had it at pretty much the bottom of my list and right beside Ridley from Metroid. I'll leave it up to you if you want to rank it last or second last.
No, we can. I think I would put it above the NES Ridley, but below Zero Mission Ridley.
Okay, so I had that on my list too. So other M Ridley. So all right, so what we got here so far, we got one more left. Still tied at number 1, which we're gonna have to sort out here pretty quick. Super Metroid and Meta Ridley from Prime. And number 3, Meta Ridley from Corruption. Number 4, Ridley X from Fusion. Number 5, Omega Ridley from Corruption. Number 6, Ridley Robot from Zero Mission. Number 7, Ridley from Zero Mission. Number 8, Other M Ridley. And number 9, Ridley from Metroid. Let's bring it on home and talk about Proteus Ridley from Samus Returns. I know that this is a favorite of yours, isn't it?
Yeah, this is on my list second. I love this fight. This fight is so good. I really can't. I could speak enough of it. Maybe I don't know. I could speak a lot on it. That's for sure. Because I really love this fight. I love how they added the phases. It ramps up. Every fight is more and more intense. It gets more and more dangerous. The music ramps up. The cinematics are so cool. I like how they are, you know, giving us a little more look into like the difference between like the full organic Ridley we see later and the meta Ridley that came beforehand. He's a lot of fun to fight. Like I said earlier, looking through these boss fights just to get a refresher and reminded myself of how much I love the Proteus Ridley fight. Made me want to replay the Samus Returns as a whole because I want to go back to it and fight him again. I really love that fight. It's so sick, and I love too how they incorporated the baby Metroid. How the baby Metroid gets in there and gets a couple jabs in here and there, and Ridley has to shake him off. It's a really sick fight. I think it's done well, and compared to the 2D fights, yeah, it doesn't have like that claustrophobic like feel to them, but it captures what I love about the Metroid the Prime fights, where there's a lot of scale and it's super epic and intense, and the music's just going off, and Ridley's going off, and you're fighting, you're brawling for the most part. Really love this fight. This is a high ranker for me.
Yeah, I agree with actually pretty much everything that you just said.
Yeah, I love that fight.
I really love this fight.
It.
I think the only downfalls to this fight, which I'll just kind of bring up now before I get into what I really like, is and it's not a downfall so much, but like it's a surprise, so you don't have that build up to it, which is a little bit, it can be disappointing, but at the same time it was also just like, oh damn, there's Ridley, like this is awesome. Mm-hmm. So that's a negative, and I don't think his design looks really cool.
Oh, okay.
I do think that he has like this weird like suit thing on, which I don't really love. I like just like the scaly skeletal Ridley. That being said, yeah, I think everything about this fight is like absolutely fantastic. Like the setting you have it's like very colorful. The background, it like really kind of paints an ambiance of what's going on. You have like the storms and like the clouds
Yeah,
going in the
love it.
background.
So good.
It just it looks really cinematic, like almost like Blade Runner-y. Like I think it looks so cool.
Yeah.
I love how physical this fight is. This is like, again, this is a brawl, and like you see cinematics and like Samus and Ridley are like decking each other in the face and like going back and
Yeah.
forth. I actually think that they do manage to capture that air of like claustrophobia, even though they're fighting in like an open space. Like it's still like
Close fought.
the battlefield isn't like that
Yeah.
big, so like you still are in
And
close
he's huge
proximity.
too,
And, like
which
he's
yeah.
huge and he's fast. He moves so
Yep.
fast, and like he can just get you. Like this Ridley, I think, is a brawler, but he's agile and like really does everything that I love about Ridley fights. And like you nailed it actually. I think that like the story of him trying to get this baby Metroid and the Metroid coming in and like actually helping Samus like achieve victory. I love this. And actually, in retrospect, it makes what happens in Super Metroid, I think, even better, because that way it makes Ridley look like even more of a killer when he finally does succeed and steal the baby Metroid, and it makes that fight even more intense and personal when Samus finally does get up close with Ridley in Super Metroid. So like a Proteus Ridley, I think is like is one of the best Ridley fights, and the music, man, oh man, the music just
so
slaps.
good.
It's so
I
good.
mean, the entire thing does, but when you hit phase 3 and it starts really going
Yeah.
in, he's like going in on you too. He's doing these like screen wide attacks. I'm like, bruh, it is hype. I love it. Yeah, it's so good. Great fight.
I didn't initially I didn't love that it was broken into phases, but I've kind of grown to appreciate that now, where it's like it's just like that epitomizes Ridley. It's like every time you think this bastard is down, he's back up
Yeah.
and he's in your face, and he like it's something new. So like yeah, I love the physicality of it. I love the setting. I love that the baby Metroid gets involved. And like a Samus Returns is just, it's such a, as far as 2D games go, like you've got the most options in terms of like aiming your missiles, aiming your beams. Like it just feels really good to move around, and like to me, like you can be a lot more precise when you're aiming, and like you don't just like fire missiles willy-nilly or beams willy-nilly like you do in some of the other 2D fights. So this one's really high up there for me. I would I could be convinced that this is one of the absolute top tier Ridley fights. I love it. Yeah. It's great.
This is a second on my list, so I love this fight.
Okay, so I have Meta Ridley from Corruption ahead of this. I probably could be convinced that this is better than that fight, depending on how hard you want to argue that.
I think there's a case to make for both of them. I think for they both are just really good at like what they do. I think the Prime 3 fight, it really gives you a nice lead in of what's to come gameplay wise for the entirety of Corruption, and it being, a Wii game with motion controls. That was pretty big at the time. And it was, a huge fight right at the beginning of the game. It's really hype, really intense. At the same time, you have this other fight, which is, the first time I think Ridley, the actual Ridley, is the last boss fight in a game, which is really cool, and it's super sick and goes even super hard for no reason. And that's just a tough call, man. I personally would, if I had to pick between the two, I would put. Man, I don't know.
I know it's tough.
I want to hear what you're gonna say first. Where would you put it right now on our list?
So I mean, Proteus and Meta Ridley from Corruption were 2 and 3 on my list, respectively.
Same.
But like, I think that both of these fights are pretty much as good as each other. Like, I think it's one of the best versions of a 2D Ridley fight, and it's one of the best version. Well, I think it is the best version of a 3D Ridley fight. Yeah, you know what? How about this? Let's stick a little bit more conventional. And the Meta Ridley fight is so cool, but it's also unique because you're falling down that generator. But let's keep it conventional and put a classic 2D Ridley fight just a little bit ahead of it.
I think what edges
that.
Proteus Ridley fight over the Prime 3 fight is the ventilation shaft part of the Prime 3 fight is really cool. It isn't that hard though, and it is essentially just kind of like a shooting gallery kind of section. Whereas I feel like the Proteus Ridley fight is firing on all cylinders at all times, and I do think the cinematics that they add just really puts it over the edge for me. I love that. Samus is just like flying through the air, swinging on his like neck, and with like the grapple, like, punching him in the face. I'm like, come on, that's like in Prime.
There's such an awesome sequence where like Samus punches Ridley in the face, he whips her, she like steals the baby Metroid, goes back and black.
Yeah,
It's
and
so
the
good.
part where he just body slams and like shoulder checks through all of her blasts and just like coast to coast, corner to corners or into the walls with like wall comboing. I'm like, yes, this is it. If the Prime 3 fight happened like today, with like better like on Switch technology and better cinematics and all that, I feel like it'd probably be like such a even better fight. But Samus Returns has the edge of being made a little more recently, so we get a little more out of that. Yeah, I think I would put the Proteus fight over the Corruption fight, and it is on my list over it too, but very barely. They're both very, very good fights.
I agree. Okay, so we still have the conundrum. What's number one? What's number two
So
here? We've got Super and we've got Prime. Now, you know what?
This is hard.
I had Prime like kind of not quite middle of the pack, but I had it at number 4 on my list, and I had Super at number 1. But you know what? I'm an old school dude. I loved Super Metroid. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Yeah, something put your first Ridley fight. I feel like just is for me. That's what's putting it over the edge here. Just how intense, what a brawl it was. Everything leading up to it. I don't know. I mean, what we could do is we could cheat. I mean, it is our list. We could leave them both at number 1, or we could revisit this with a arbitrator at some point in the future. I mean, we've got options.
I think what is the best thing we should do is we should confirm the list, but I think Meta and Super will have to stay together. And yeah, we got to do like a poll. We got to do another episode. Maybe we do another one. We come back to this and we really say which is the better fight.
Yeah, I think we have to.
Because here's the thing. This was your first Ridley fight. I played Prime and Fusion at the same time pretty much, but I think I got to the Meta Ridley fight first, I want to say. And so it was my first Ridley fight. I love this fight. I think both fights are, when you think of like what really like encapsulates the Ridley fights in 2D and 3D, I think these are the ones that really are like the fundamental, ones you think of that check off all the boxes. And it's a hard pick. They both have really good cases for each other. I think for right now, we give them both the first slot, and we take the easy way out, and we come back and revisit it.
We're sending people home with a dusty finish tonight. Yeah. We promised you a ranking of all the number 1 or the Ridley fights, and
it's too hard.
We're sending you home with 2 number 1s. But you know what? It is too hard because I feel like really from 5 down or from 4 down, especially like the Corruption fight, the Proteus fight, Super fight, Prime fight, like those are all amazing fights.
They really are.
But
yeah,
nevertheless, let's just finally let's finish this off. Let's give you our list, and we'll get on out of here. We'll give you our own personal lists. But here we go. As picked by Dak and I, as debated over the last hour and a bit here, we have at number 10 the Ridley fight from Metroid on the NES. At number 9, Ridley from Other M. At number 8, Ridley from Zero Mission. At number 7, the Ridley robot, also from Zero Mission. Number 6, Omega Ridley, from Corruption. At number 5, Ridley X from Fusion. At number 4, Meta Ridley from Corruption. At number 3, Proteus Ridley from Samus Returns. And at number 1, and at number 1 also, we have Ridley from Super Metroid and Meta Ridley from Metroid Prime. Dak, tell me your list really quickly. I think I pieced most of it together here, but just so our audience can hear your list.
It's really not far off from what we ended up putting together. So my list is first place. Actually, I'll go from 10 up since that's what you just did.
Yeah, go
from 10.
So
in 10th, NES Ridley from Metroid 1. In 9th, the Ridley clone, not Ridley, from Other M. In 8th, the Ridley robot from Zero Mission. In 7th, the Ridley from Zero Mission, the actual Ridley from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Jesus Christ. 6th, Omega Ridley from Prime 3. In 5th place, Ridley from Super Metroid. And 4th, Ridley X from Metroid Fusion. And 3rd, Meta Ridley from Corruption. In 2nd, Proteus Ridley from Samus Returns. And in 1st place, it's your boy, coming in hot, Meta Ridley from Metroid Prime.
All right, I like it. Our list is sort of similar in certain areas. I'm with you. I had told you before we started that our bottom two would be the same,
right.
and they
You're
are.
right.
Number 10, I got Ridley from Metroid. Number 9, Ridley from Other M. Number 8, Ridley from Zero Mission. Number 7, Ridley X from Fusion. Number 6, Robot Ridley from Zero Mission. Number 5, Omega Ridley from Corruption. Number 4, Meta Ridley from Prime. Number 3, Proteus Ridley from Samus Returns. Number 2, Meta Ridley from Corruption. And number 1, Ridley from Super. You know, I'm looking at my top 3, and like I feel like any of these could have been number 1 actually. Like they're awesome.
I look at this list and like I love the Metroid Prime Ridley fight. I love Proteus Ridley. I love Prime 3 Meta Ridley. I love Ridley X, the Super Metroid Ridley fight. Omega Ridley from Prime. Even looking back at this, I think the only things I would change from my list is the Zero Mission Ridley fights almost seem too low for me, you know? Looking back, I might even put the Zero Mission Ridley fights over the Prime 3 Omega Ridley fight, but I don't know. It's hard because I hate looking at the Zero Mission fights so low on the list. I'm like, I still like those fights though, you know? Like they're still good, and that's like so indicative of how good Metroid is like it's so hard to even rank these bosses because I'm like, for the most part, I mean, 8 out of 10 of these are very good and, you know, are solid match.
They're very interchangeable. I think like 10 and 9 on our list is like deservedly 10 and 9, but like the rest of them you can
mix it
up.
Kind
of mix and match almost.
Can mix it up, and I would love to hear what other people have, you know, in terms of their thoughts, what I think everything should be, because I'm sure we have pretty agreeable thoughts, but maybe there's some fans maybe some people, there's someone out there who thinks the first Ridley fight is best. I would love to hear from him, but yeah, I think we have a pretty solid list here.
All right, so this is what we need from everybody listening. We need you to weigh in. What fight is better, Super or Prime? Which track slaps harder, Super or Prime? And, you know, maybe we need, if you're out there and you're a podcaster into the Metroid scene and you want to be an arbitrator on this, you hit us up at Omega Metroid Pod over on Twitter. We want you to hit us up on Twitter as well. I am at Spateri316. Dak is at the Rapture _ and we're gonna get out of here. This is going long. I don't know if this is gonna be our longest show, but if it isn't, it's gonna be close. We want you to check us out over on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Go like and subscribe to the Omega Metroid podcast. Yes, leave us a 5-star review if you think we've earned it. And you know what? That's gonna do it for us for this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. We're going to be back with some follow-up for this topic in a future episode, I'm sure. In the meantime, see you next mission, everybody. Take care.